Hello and welcome. I'm Alec Wright, Chief Product Officer at OneValley, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today for a very special edition of our monthly pitch night. None of this would be possible without the incredible support and attendance from the OneValley community. So on behalf of the entire OneValley team, I'm excited to welcome you here to see an amazing group of early stage startups that are transforming the education and learning space. It's our monthly pitch series, and this one is particularly close to heart because this is a vertical and an area that we're always so excited about, and always have a great history of partnering with great early stage founders. We're also excited to be working with AWS EdStart on today's event. AWS EdStart is designed to help entrepreneurs build the next generation of online learning, analytics, and campus management solutions on the AWS cloud. The accelerator is designed to enable edtech startups to move faster through benefits such as equity-free financial support through the famed AWS promotional credits, technical training and support, as well as access to a global community of edtech experts and more. In just a few minutes, we'll be joined by Alex Sarlin, founder of Edtech Insiders, to take it in a slightly different direction for a fireside chat about the common trends that are really defining the education technology space today, as well as those challenges that edtech founders face, and Alex's advice for early stage founders in the sector. But more on that later. Before we kick off, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what we do here at OneValley. OneValley is a global entrepreneurship platform that supports founders, accelerates startups, and empowers organizations across the globe that build innovation communities. Over the past 6 years, OneValley has supported thousands of early stage companies that have raised over $2 billion in venture capital. We have over 300,000 entrepreneurs in our ecosystem. And our mission is very simple: to democratize the resources of Silicon Valley and make them available to founders anywhere in the world. And we do this through a variety of initiatives, including events like this. Before COVID, we were hosting 80+ events a year, but today we're running these events virtually, and the online accessibility and connectivity has opened them up to thousands and thousands of more. So we're really excited to have you at today's event. Beyond our events, we also support this incredible community of founders through OneValley Passport, our online resource and resource hub and community for early stage founders. We have 40,000 plus entrepreneurs in our Passport ecosystem, dozens of corporate partners, hundreds of investors, over 200 specialist mentors, and $1 million plus of the essential technology tools and services that every early stage startup needs. Also, we're really excited to offer today's viewers easy discounted access to that using the pitch code EdTech25. So if you're interested in joining Passport and accessing this community and resources, check it out today and use this code to save 25% off your annual membership. With that, it's my pleasure to get the event going. We'll be getting started with a conversation with Alex Sarlin, who's the founder of Edtech Insiders. Alex is a veteran edtech operator who has led product and learning at Coursera, Skillshare, 2U, Trilogy Education, Scholastic, Knewton. The list just goes on and on of the defining education, technology, and human capital companies of today. And today is currently an On Deck Edtech Fellow. So it's my pleasure to welcome Alex to our virtual stage and get this conversation going. Thanks for joining us today, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me, Alec, and everybody at OneValley.
No, it's our privilege, and really it's a great opportunity for our audience today to learn from someone who the list just goes, as I say, the list goes on and on. So much exposure and experience with a disproportionate number of the really industry leading companies in the space today. So before we dive into the conversation, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share a little bit more about yourself and the incredible journey you've been on.
Sure. So I sort of like to think of myself as the Forrest Gump of EdTech, somebody who's sort of been in the right place at the right time for a lot of different EdTech trends, a lot of big investment rounds. I'll give the short version, which is, I got into education as a teacher and tutor in my early 20s, right out of college, and basically realized very quickly in speaking to high schoolers at that time that what they were doing at home on their computers was a lot more sophisticated, more collaborative, more interesting, and a lot more engaging than what they were doing in school. And school was just falling further and further behind the tech trends. And so I went back to get a master's degree in instructional design and technology, really with a focus on how do you make educational technology engaging and effective at the same time? How do you make it fun and interesting and keep everybody's attention, but also work for learning? So right out of school, I got recruited by Knewton, which was like one of the very first cohort of big edtech investment rounds. It was the biggest edtech investment in history at the time. They were doing adaptive learning, test prep, trying to make education as interesting and effective as possible in this adaptive way. And that sort of set me on a journey of going with both startups and larger edtech companies in both the higher ed and lifelong learning space, and then going back and forth sometimes to K-12. So, went to, I won't give you my whole resume, but you mentioned a lot of the Scholastic to build basically in-school games for K2 students and a remedial math for high school. Joined Coursera as a relatively early employee, and just was really ensconced in that movement of higher ed to go online. Then I was at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative working on an in-school platform called the Summit Learning Platform that was being offered for free to schools all around the country. Then to Trilogy, which then got acquired by 2U, which is about technical boot camp. So, I looked up and most recently at Skillshare, and I looked up at one point and just said, well, I've really made the rounds in this space and have learned so much and met so many amazing, brilliant people. I just wanted to sort of step back and start sharing some of what I've learned to this amazing new generation of people entering the space, the young entrepreneurs, some of the people we'll see pitch today, and people entering the space, for the first time in this totally changed world.
Well, no, I mean, it's an incredible trajectory, and you've seen so many different sides of the rapidly evolving education and learning landscape. So I imagine there's a lot of perspective to share, without question. I think you end on a very interesting point, of course, which is the rapid changes that the industry, and I mean, and industry is not even the right term, world, entire ecosystem of education is going through as a result of the COVID pandemic. And I think we're very much still in the midst of that disruption. But what are some of the trends, or what are some of the opportunities or obstacles that you've noticed over the last 18 months as we've been going through this kind of once in a lifetime transition?
It's a really amazing time for the world, and dreadful in many ways, but also really lots of opportunities for people who are interested in sort of seeing change, because almost every aspect of education at all levels is being totally upended and thrown into disarray, frankly. I mean, the K-12. So some of the big trends that I've been seeing, and I've been talking to a lot of people in various parts of this space about this over the last year and a half. I think we're in the early innings, actually, of how COVID's going to affect education and edtech, in that nobody knows exactly what it means to sort of go back to normal in this world. Teachers, one of the main trends I would see is that teachers are both burning out and quitting at really unprecedented rates. And we're seeing a sort of growing teacher shortage. As we all know, I think teachers and adjunct professors, we should not forget about, are two of the most underpaid, under sort of respected professions in the United States. It's not true of other countries, but it's true here. And I think that now that they ended up being these frontline essential workers, and I think they're really seeing their career trajectories in different ways. So I think a lot of them are leaving traditional education, and some of them are entering this sort of edtech peripheral education world, which I think is incredibly interesting. So teachers are going on to OutSchool, they're going on to Teachers Pay Teachers, they're creating their own courses on TikTok, on Udemy, they're becoming tutors for Chinese students, which is a whole other story. But there's this incredible change in sort of what it means to be a teacher and what it means to have a career in education in 2021. It's not nearly as predictable. And I think you're just going to see a lot more teachers putting on their entrepreneur hat and thinking about what else could they do. And then, of course, edtech companies can meet them halfway and give them all sorts of amazing opportunities. That's one trend. Another is that, of course, we became, Zoom. Everybody in the whole world got very quickly comfortable with Zoom and Google Classroom and online learning platforms. None of the, Newsela exploded during this time. Duolingo has done really well. All of these different edtech platforms that were already sort of growing have just gone up incredibly. Quizlet, Course Hero. And I think we're just getting to this moment where the comfort with using this type of educational tool went from, it was a few teachers in any school who were sort of the hip, cool teachers who knew how to use it, to, okay, everybody suddenly learned how to use it really, really quickly. Parents at home learned how to use it. Kids as young as, first and second grade learned how to use it, which was, nobody thought that they were going to be on Zoom school anytime soon. Teachers learned to use it. Teachers' aides learned to use it. Principals learned to use it. Schools learned to buy it very quickly. So there's just this incredible accelerant. I mean, some of the big investors say we basically did 10 years of acceleration in this space in 2 years. And I think what that means for the future, hard to say. Some companies will continue to grow, some will be bought out by others, but I think there's a feeling of, okay, we just sort of warped forward in terms of adoption of edtech at all levels. And what does it mean? TBD, but I think everybody who's entering the space right now is part of that story. And then a third trend, and I'll keep this one short, is I think about accreditation. So this has been changing for quite a while, but I think we're in a really different world now where what it means to get a sort of credit of education, we used to call it a high school diploma or a college degree, is getting very, very loosely defined. Getting AWS and Amazon certificates are as valuable as many different other educational credentials, if not more. Getting, Udemy, Facebook, Google, MongoDB, Salesforce are all offering their own credentials. Companies like Credly and Incredible are allowing, any company or any institution to offer their own credentials. I love Outlier. If you haven't, they have this amazing model of how to do a credit. There's a startup called Wolf University that's trying to upend the accreditation system by basically allowing almost, any group to become a university that actually can give accredited, credits. It's just a very Wild West and exciting space where instead of it being diplomas and degrees, every kind of education credit ever. It reminds me of the moment where like YouTube exploded, where instead of, a few people have a TV shows, everybody can offer media. Now, almost everybody can offer academic or educational credit in one way or another. What does the world look like? We'll have to see.
No, it's incredibly interesting. I think, especially from the lens of the intersection of some of these trends that are beyond education and that I don't think get enough attention here. Where I think there's anyone who's talking about the pendulum swinging back in the other direction on online learning, I think it's challenging to imagine, because to your point, a lot of the excuses that have just persisted for years and years, like they're gone. Like there's no more pretending that a school can't buy a new edtech product in less than 16 months. And and so I think it's hard to imagine going back to that world, but I don't think there's been enough thought about, how are these changes in workforce that we're seeing elsewhere, impacting the education space. And, it's not only is it not immune to it, if anything, it's likely particularly susceptible to
Very
it.
much so.
And how does the creator economy and, these entrepreneurial phenomena, it's such an interesting conversation. And I think it speaks to your point, whether it's wild West or kind of brave new world that we're in right now, we're in for a lot of change. But I think maybe if we think about that, when we think about the entire edtech landscape, and we've already talked about a lot of different elements of that value chain, starting in pre-K, K-12, and going all the way up to this, lifelong learning, flywheel. Where do you see some of the most exciting opportunities that entrepreneurs should be honing on in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's large opportunity in all three spaces, right? In K-12 and early education, lots of changes happening. We don't know if it'll snap back to the regular procurement cycles or whether, what'll exactly happen. But I'm hoping and anticipating that schools will continue to innovate. They'll continue to feel much more confident integrating technology into their education. So I think that space is really exciting. The other thing in K-12 education is this enormous flood of straight to consumer edtech companies. So you think about, Byju's and Vedantu, big Indian tutoring companies, Nerdy, Brainly, OutSchool, Masterclass, Duolingo. A lot of the fast growing companies right now are actually going directly to students, and or parents or families. That is really interesting. And I think that's a really ripe space, because then, even if K-12, sales sort of snaps back to some of the difficulties we've seen in the past, if you have a line to work directly with customers, then you don't even have to worry about that. I think in higher ed, I love my passion, I guess right now I would say, is the higher ed to workforce space. And part of that is that I think it's just incredibly unstable. I think, colleges are really trying to figure out what to do to keep up demand, to keep their enrollments happening, to partner with companies or partner with tech tools to basically to meet their students halfway, rather than just continuing to ratchet up tuition and offer the same kind of thing. They know that their students are coming to get career, advancement. They know that people want to graduate faster. They know that people want to spend less money, but they haven't had to meet them halfway for a long time. And now you have these innovative models, both from, nonprofit and from startups. I think they're just going to start innovating in an incredibly fast pace. So I'm really excited about that. And you look at companies like Emeritus or Upgrad or Handshake, and they're really filling this incredibly interesting gap about, like, how do you actually enter the workforce through education, which I think colleges, for whatever reason, really don't fill as much as you would expect, given the numbers of students looking for that. So I think there's just a lot of people flooding into this really open space about how do you help people discover, accelerate, get into the right career trajectory and then succeed, whether or not they have a college degree. That's also where all the boot camps live, right? This last mile education. So I think that's a really ripe space, and it's getting crowded, but I think there's still a lot of opportunity there.
Well, I mean, it makes so much sense. It's one of the spaces, if maybe not the most poignant example, where kind of the expectation and reality are just so widely disconnected. And I think every student goes into whatever their educational path is with some expectation that it's a bridge to
right.
Employment, it's a bridge to income. And then I think it's one of those spaces that the disillusionment that happens, a lot of the times just is so ripe for disruption. So it's exciting to hear that you see so many, interesting new opportunities in the space.
There are these incredible studies that show that, like, high school teachers think their students are ready for college, but college professors think the same students are not ready for college. And then college professors think their students are ready for jobs, but hiring managers don't think the students are ready for jobs. So there's just, like, students are getting handed off from life stage to life stage with just not the toolkit to succeed. And some of us can figure it out, and navigate it if we have the resources, but the vast majority of people are not. And right now there's a huge crisis for men. The number of males going to college right now is really, really falling. We're at 60% female college student body right now, which is higher than it's ever been. And men are just not going. They're just choosing alternative pathways. They're afraid of the debt. And that's a crazy moment that has not happened in a long time, ever, actually.
Yeah, no, I think, and it's one of those challenges that everyone's recognized for a long time and has been pointing at the gap between education and workforce. But if you then go and really look at what meaningful, changes have been put in place, we're left wanting. But it sounds like there's a whole new wave of solutions and folks really diving into that. So that's exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of the things that's interesting about your trajectory is you've had a variety of different roles, but many of them just kind of centering around the product, and so many of them in companies that have gone through one, two, three evolutions
Yes.
of kind of where they've sat in the value chain and the
Yeah.
ecosystem. So, what have you learned about kind of iterative feedback and building delightful educational experiences that you think early stage founders should be thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few lessons there, but I think two quick ones that I would just say that have just come up over and over again in sort of every company and almost every phase of my career is that, education was not originally sort of built for students and learners. It wasn't. It was sort of built for societal needs, and then over time built for the institutions themselves, for the schools, for the colleges, and I think that one thing that ed tech companies and even very, very small companies can be really, really smart about and really leapfrog other people about is just doing what your actual learners want, like listening to the learners. What are they trying to learn? How long are they willing to commit? How much are they willing to pay? What do they want their platform to look like? What confuses them? What bewilders them? Like, the regular education system is not very reactive to any of those questions. I mean, think about how difficult it is to just register for college. It is like 20 steps, or to get financial aid. These systems persist and they just steamroll people. And tech companies can actually listen to their learners. So you can never talk to enough learners. You can never respond to enough learners. It's and the companies that have shifted, frankly, have often shifted in response to learners. So, both Coursera and 2U really shifted their business models based on what their demand was looking at. Coursera originally had no opinion about what would be taught on the platform. And then they discovered organically that people were flooding into business, technology, and data courses to try to get a career advancement. They didn't know at the time whether it would be college students or high school students or people or retirees looking to learn, liberal arts. But that became the biggest segment by far. And then they doubled down there reactively. And 2U, has done all these social work degrees, has done all of these different degrees as an OPM, but they're seeing that people are really hungry for shorter form education and lower cost education. And they've done a series of acquisitions, including Trilogy, also Get Smarter, and now edX, to basically meet learners much earlier in the funnel with much faster learning experiences than full degrees. And that was in response to demand. That's not because they believe that degrees are not the best way to learn. In fact, 2U would probably be very happy to keep degrees as the best way to learn, but that's not what the learners want, and so they're trying to meet them. So, and the other one really fast is just keep products very simple. I think that education is complicated, and every good educator will ask you for their own features. They'll ask you to do something this way or that way, or, oh, I teach Egyptian history, so can you do a pyramid shape this? And it's really dangerous to over listen to niche educators, even the best educators, right? Even the people who know all the research. If you do it their way, then you're going to leave the middle behind. So that's I think the thing. There's a necessity to filter the ideas that come from your smartest educators into a process that can be used with everyone else, which takes a lot of work. It's not easy to figure out. So those are the two things, right? Simplicity, and don't respond too much to your best educators, but do respond to the student needs.
No, very, very interesting perspective. And I mean, particularly I imagine this is a particularly pervasive challenge in ed tech, because that intuitive desire to say, well, let's take what's offline, that process, and let's digitize it and put it online. Well, it's an industry that is particularly, as you said, non-responsive to the needs of learners. So that's a bit of a trap, and you really need to step back, rethink the opportunity, the experience, and focus on learner outcomes. So no, it's yeah, great perspective. I want to be cognizant of time
Sure.
and want to throw it over to our founders pretty soon. But one final question to wrap us up. If you had one piece of advice or one major learning that you could share on founders that are diving in, headfirst into transforming the educational industry, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a great question. My best answer to this, there's all sorts of, nuanced specific things you could do about, raising money or how to hire. But I think my best advice on this would be to really question everything, question the assumptions of the system. I think that, if you really sort of step back and think about what some of the really successful education companies, I think that ed tech companies, I think a lot of them really actually go right at some sort of sacred cows of education. What is a school? What is it for? What is a college? What is it for? What is a classroom? What is a teacher? Who should be allowed to teach? How much should education cost? When people are trying to do $10,000, $8,000, $5,000 degrees, that was unheard of just a few years ago. Who should pay for an individual's education? They're all these interesting models now about employers paying for education, like Guild, or people only paying in delayed ways, or families paying for students' education, or families hiring a teacher to run their own school. So I would just say that education is a very complex system, and the more you sort of learn it and the lingo and all the pieces, the more you're sort of tempted to, at least for me, the more it's tempting to sort of find something that fits directly in. It's like, well, schools do this for procurement and they need to figure out this exact thing, so I'll do this thing that makes it 10% easier. But I think the bigger swings are so much more interesting. And when you really think about, what should someone feel like on their last day of high school or college? And just really think about that. There's a lot of big ideas in there that can be translated into companies. Because everybody has that experience. Everybody in the world, and almost everybody in the world, certainly almost everybody in the U.S. And that moment, nobody's really thought about it in that way. The system's run on momentum for a long time. So I would encourage people here to think really big and not get too caught up in the existing system and sort of trying to fit into it. Really think about, what would it look like if I were to create a whole new system with my startup.
Well, it's great kind of ending words for our founders, and it really sounds like the common thread throughout all of this is putting yourself in the learner's shoes and taking that learner perspective, which is just something that has been missing and is such an opportunity in the space. And so, Alex, I just got to thank you again for spending the time with us, sharing insight from across an incredible journey through the ed tech industry over the last couple of years, and excited to start watching and reading EdTech Insiders, and getting continuing to follow your thoughts and what's going on in your work in the space. So thanks for joining us.
Really appreciate it.
Well, with that, an amazing conversation with Alex on the trends and trials and tribulations of early stage ed tech founders. But I'm excited for us to get into the pitch event tonight. Our spotlight on ed tech, we'll be hearing from a great group of early stage founders. But before we hear from our first presenting company, I want to introduce you to the three judges today that will be evaluating our companies, leading the Q&A, and really getting to know these founders and companies and products. We have Atin Batra, the general partner at 27 Ventures, Jeff Wickert, the US program leader at AWS EdStart, and Juan Scarlett, managing director at OneValley Ventures. I'd love to invite each one of our judges onto our virtual stage to give a quick introduction on their background and experience and passion around the ed tech space. Maybe Atin, do you want to kick us off?
Hey, Alec, thank you for having me on the event. This is, by the way, it's 6:30 where I am, 6:30 a.m. So I've been up since 5:30 for the event, but super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Um, my quick intro of how I got connected with the edtech space is the classic boy meets girl story, actually, if you will imagine it. 15 years ago, when I was an undergrad student myself, I met this very amazing woman who was running a nonprofit that was focused on teaching soft skills to young adults back home in India. And as more of an excuse to spend time with her, I joined the organization. But it was a formative experience for me because I really learned how to appreciate the power of education and the power of providing, exposure and opportunities to young adults. Fun fact, that woman is now my wife, and we're about to give birth to our firstborn in 2 weeks. So super excited for the journey that we've had over the last 15 years. But that is the foundation of my interest in education. And then after having been a venture investor for about 7 years, 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to be investing in education full time, and that's why I founded 27 Ventures. So anyway, I'll stop there, but that's my story.
Amazing, and can't thank you enough for joining us so early in the morning. I guess, and congratulations on to you and your wife. But I guess this is just training for the
coming
exactly
months, that's what I told my wife. Don't worry.
5:30.
Exactly, that's what I told my wife. This is me practicing. I'm very committed to the cause.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to throw it over to Jeff.
Hi, everybody. Jeff Wickard. I am the U.S. Program Manager for the AWS EdStart program. I'm actually the new and former program manager for the AWS EdStart program in US. I actually started with this program in 2018 and 2019. My background in EdTech starts in 2008 when I launched a global steel derivative training program using Panopto. I was one of the early customers for Panopto, if you're familiar with that solution, and built that out globally, and then started working for Panopto, and then eventually came over to Amazon and built a thing called Machine Learning University, the sort of internal version of that, before working early with AWS EdStart, and then I took a brief break to found my own company, which is not an edtech, or was not an edtech, and then now I'm back and working with the passion that I have for edtech startups and seeing what we can do at AWS really to sort of add fuel to these startups and help them to get past the technical barriers. I think Alec did a wonderful job of introducing the virtual accelerator. We are the virtual accelerator inside of AWS. We do provide equity-free investment and also technical training to help build these visions and get them sort of past the technical barriers that they need to get past to ultimately inspire learners and change the face of education.
Thank you, Jeff. And we've loved working with the AWS EdStart team for the past couple of years, and it's really been a great program for so many early stage education founders in our community. And really appreciate you joining us today. And finally, over to you, Juan.
Thanks, Alec. I'm Juan Scarlett. I lead OneValley Ventures, where we work with partners to develop and execute venture investment strategies, leveraging the OneValley ecosystem. We recently launched the OneValley Fund, a pre-seed and seed stage focused fund that invests in standout digital transformation companies from across the OneValley ecosystem and our partner networks, and we are actively investing. I've been in the venture capital industry for the past 14 plus years. And broadly working in tech and research for the past 20. I think in terms of edtech and in terms of my own both interest and involvement, I think it's sort of been interesting. I've certainly had an opportunity at prior firms to engage with a number of sort of expansion and growth stage edtech companies at that time, but never quite got there on the investment opportunities. And I'm certainly regretting those now, looking back 4 to 5 years later. There's some very high profile names that we passed on for one reason or another, unfortunately. But I've also been a pretty avid consumer of edtech, both for myself, and I still haven't quite learned how to play guitar, but also for my son, who we homeschooled for 2 years, not during the pandemic, actually. We actually did that prior to the pandemic and used a number of online resources from OutSchool and Udemy and Coursera, et cetera, to fill in some gaps that we weren't getting from tutors and or teachers that we were using at the time as well. So I've been an avid user and really excited to see the progress that the EdTech ecosystem has made, and certainly over the last 2 years, but really over the last 5 to 10 years, and I'm really excited to see where it's going as well.
Thank you very much, Juan. Great to have you here with us today, and a special thank you again to all 3 of our judges who, everyone will be hearing more from in the coming minutes. But with that, we are ready to get into our pitches. We have, I, of course, forgot to mention that so excited that Jeff actually just recently joined us as a Passport mentor. And so if you want to learn more about AWS Edstart or pick his brain on his years of experience, there's a great opportunity to do that in the OneValley ecosystem. But with that, a quick reminder of what we're here for. We'll be giving out a $2,000 cash prize for our #1 startup, as well as a free Passport membership. And then, all of you in the audience, don't forget to vote. If you're having any trouble with voting, just reload the page real quickly. But our Audience Choice Award will get a quick, easy $500 cash. So we'd love to hear which of the startups you're most excited about in the audience. And with that, I'm excited to announce our presenting companies. We have Koochooloo Gospel Obi, the CEO and co-founder of MyClassConnect. We have Tyler York, the CEO and co-founder of Achievable. We have Keith Wakeman, CEO and co-founder of SuperBetter. Ksenia Korobkova, the product manager of Chef Koochooloo. Ghazal Qureshi, the CEO and co-founder of UpBrainery. And Dr. S. Sudhakar, founder and president at SchoolCues. So you'll be hearing from all of these exceptional founders in the next couple moments. But as a reminder to our audience, we want you to be part of the action. Vote for your favorite startups. You yourself will get a chance to win a Passport membership. Let us know who you're really excited about. And if you're an investor or a corporate leader, feel free to request an introduction to any companies you're particularly excited about, and we'll get that connection going. And with that, we're ready to get into our pitches. It's my pleasure to welcome our first presenting company, MyClassConnect, to the virtual stage.
Hello, welcome to MyClassConnect. My name is Koochooloo Gospel Obi, and I'm the co-founder and CEO. We have one vision, that is to pioneer reality where educators and students in higher institutions across Africa stays efficient and motivated in delivery of quality education. So why are we doing this? Yes, because we know that higher education model in Africa is broken. It's inaccessible. It's not accessible because potential students often is being denied admission into physical universities. And even for those that are able to get a seat every year, get admission into physical universities, faces poor policies such as obsolete curriculums and overcrowded classrooms. And this impacts student education by 70% because educators' efficiency is reduced. And of course, because of these issues, it makes students to always want to go to overseas to gain admission, which costs over $1 billion annually for African higher institutions, which is a potential revenue. All right. So what we decided to do is to actually digitize teaching and learning for higher institutions across sub-Saharan Africa so that they can be able to improve access and quality education. Our platform is aimed to support blended learning, which is in-person and online education, and of course powers digital transformation and improves student-led learning. So just like I said, our platform or solution is aimed at transforming education digitally, and of course we want to improve or simplify educators' workload so that they can be able to save time and increase their efficiency, enabling them handle teaching and learning effectively. And of course, we want to improve student engagement by enabling them to learn more, motivating them to learn more with incentives, and of course improve student performance, which will leverage AI to be able to personalize their learning as well. And while these things are happening, we are providing a research-driven community for students to enable them collaborate amongst themselves beyond their institution but within the same discipline. So we are giving them beyond the technology tool to use. We are aiming at digitalizing to transform teaching and learning particularly. So the market in Africa is over $100 million, and student enrollment will keep increasing. And when our solution is plugged into higher institutions, there's a tendency that it will enable higher institutions to improve in their enrollment, because they can be able to accommodate more and do more. So we are competing alongside typical learning management systems like Moodle, educational apps like Google Classroom, and social media platforms and other tools like Zoom and all of that. These are the tools that higher institutions are currently using, but it's still ineffective because none of these tools have completely digitalized teaching and learning for higher institutions, and only just a few actually implement adaptive learning while others don't. But we are bringing on board incentivized learning to be able to motivate students to learn, which is what educators are not doing. So, but we are coming on board to be able to do these things so that educators can focus more on teaching. We launched this year and we partner with 9Mobile Nigeria to enable our users access with zero internet connection. So far we have 6K users and 25,000 in ARR. 90% so far are active users on a daily basis, and 1K lectures on a weekly basis streamed. So we partner with high institutions to onboard their lecturers and their students, and we charge them $10 per student on an annual subscription. So our team is over 6 years of blended experience in business, technology, education, and leadership. I am my co-founder, Ebuka Ido, and also 5 other players across engineering, sales and marketing, and finance. We also backed by advisors who are strategic educators with local and international experience in higher education. So we are raising $500K proceed to enable us to hit our milestone. We want to have between now and next 3 years in 2 million in annual recurring revenue and over 300,000 users, and want to expand into other African countries such as Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya. So we'd love you to join us and be part of what we are doing at MyClassConnect, so that we can be able to power the next generation higher institutions in Africa.
Our
Thank you.
first question. Juan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you so much for the pitch. It sounds very interesting, and also thank you so much for staying up so late as well. I guess I'm curious as to the product itself. I'm curious as to how you're helping the educators save time and be more efficient. If you could give us maybe some examples of how your platform is doing that, I think that'd be really helpful.
Okay. All right. I guess everyone can hear me. All right. So basically what we actually do is that there are a lot of things that educators do, from planning and scheduling of lectures down to tracking student learning progress dynamically, handling assessment. So when we digitize teaching and learning, what we do is actually to turn all those things that educators do, such as scheduling, planning and scheduling lectures, and actually delivering lectures, so that they can be able to actually deliver lectures without having a lot of activities to do. And of course, when it comes to assessment, not just that they give assessment so that the assignment, but we also automate some things that they can do, including managing submissions for them, and with plagiarism check, and being able to leverage AI to ensure that there is actually automated grading and commenting and feedback. So these are the things that traditionally it takes time for educators to be able to do effectively. And of course, being able to also track student learning. For example, in Africa, the ratio of students to lecturer is actually beyond the ratio that is accepted globally. There's actually like 50% more students to a lecturer in a typical high institution in Africa. So you get to see a lecturer who is actually handling up to 700 students every semester. It's 800, some 900, some 500, depending, so they're not able to still do all those things, effectively, because of the amount of students that they handle every semester. So they get to actually neglect some of these things, and student learning is actually being impacted. So what we do is that to use our platform to automate some things that are necessary, so that they can be able to focus more on teaching particularly. So there are areas that we actually spotting out, and we keep improving our platforms, to ensure that those places are cut down on time for educators. So that's basically that.
Thank you. And maybe we'll throw it over to Jeff for any questions.
Yes, thank you so much for staying up and giving this pitch for us. The one term that I was looking at inside of there was this complete digitalization, and I wanted to sort of dig in a little bit deeper onto that, what you consider to be complete as opposed to incomplete. And from the last description, I'm gathering that you're sort of an LMS with some scale options to handle more students, and perhaps that is oversimplification. So please feel free to correct me on that. But I'd love to know a little bit more about where the incompleteness of digitization occurs in other solutions compared to what you're offering.
All right. So typically, learning management systems such as Moodle and some other ones, actually, what they do is that they just intend to focus on either enabling educators to just create courses, and probably students can be able to complete courses, or some other things, or probably they focus on just giving actually forums, assessment, and all of that. But these are not just the things that actually happen when it comes to teaching and learning. There are other things that are feedbacks that actually being able to manage lecture schedule. So, and these LMS are not tailored to a typical workflow that works for a higher institutions in Africa. So basically what we do is actually to look at the typical workflow when it comes to an African higher institution, and being able to actually implement this. So it's not just to give a technology, but we are giving a technology that actually mirrors what they do in a typical higher institutions and how they do. So that way it's easier for them to adapt. So for example, during the COVID, a lot of people was actually getting on board, trying to use WhatsApp, Telegram, a lot of digital tools to be able to actually get on board. But the actual challenge is that they are using those digital tools, they're trying to manipulate it to be able to do some of the things that they're doing, because that's all that they have to do, and that's the only possible tools that is actually accessible until we came on board. So when we came on board, it's actually easier. Even one of the lecturers who are not too tech savvy and all of that was actually able to get on our platform, because it's not just a digital technology, but they discovered that okay, yes, so this is similar to what I'm used to. There's this feel that it gives to a typical lecturer, because it feels like me actually being in a physical environment, but yet using a digital tool to be able to achieve that effectively. So it's education friendly and actually removes distraction even for students. So we actually looked at the whole framework when it comes to teaching and learning for a typical higher institution, and being able to now digitize it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we're at time. So Atin, I'm going to have to steal your question, and I'll throw the first one to you on the next one. But Koochooloo, thank you so much for joining us, and really exciting to learn about MyClassConnect.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, it's my pleasure to welcome Tyler York, CEO and co-founder of Achievable, to the virtual stage.
Hi, I should turn on my camera first. Sorry about that. All right, here goes. All right, hi everybody. My name's Tyler, and I'm here to tell you about Achievable. So, at Achievable, we are unlocking opportunity through education. To do this, we built the digital personal trainer for learning. The goal is to have anybody from any background be able to pass any test with our software. We already have 8 courses that serve a diverse range of customers. First, let me introduce our team. So Justin and I were roommates at Carnegie Mellon, and we've since left and gone into the tech industry in San Francisco and had a track record of success. So I'm a go-to-market expert and cross-functional leader. Most recently, I grew the revenue from for the game MLB Tap Sports Baseball from $74 to $104 million in 2 years, and turned it into the #1 licensed mobile sports game in the US. I was early sales and marketing at 3 other startups, including Anaplan. Justin is a serial entrepreneur with a passion for education technology. He started his career at AdMob, which was acquired by Google, playing a key part in that acquisition, before following his passion for education to be one of the founding engineers for University Now and Cerigo, where he built the engineering teams and architected the products for both of those platforms. So Achievable in our last 6 months has really hit our stride, and we've achieved tremendous growth. We've tripled our annual revenue run rate to $370,000. We have a great product market fit with almost 3/4 of our free signups converting to paying customers and an average purchase price of $110. And we see ourselves as right in the middle of the rapidly growing digital learning market. Now, digital learning was really transformed completely by the COVID-19 pandemic. And from Duolingo's S1, we saw that they quoted GSV that showed that the market is expected to expand from $160 billion today to $1 trillion by 2027. That's 26% year-over-year growth. And with that, 4.2 billion learners are going to be pushed online in the next 5 years. It's almost everyone on Earth. And so we're addressing this opportunity by building the digital learning company for this future, starting with our SAM in test prep, but expanding to language learning and training, with our North Star being our mission of unlocking opportunity for the people that we serve, our students. Now, COVID also, even before COVID, the digital transformation of education really provided a lot of opportunity and has built a lot of great companies. Our hope is to be the next EdTech IPO. Now, the problems that have challenged educators for decades have been motivation and engagement. Classroom instruction is inefficient. It moves at the speed of the slowest learner. Online learning was a big step forward, but it also brought a lot of those classroom dynamics with it, and still struggles today with really low engagement. A statistic that we pulled out of one of Udemy's most recent interviews is that 70% of their users never even open the courses that they have bought. And so the solution is Achievable. We have built a fun, motivating, and highly effective learning experience that creates a personalized learning path that we guide the user down from beginning to end, and we give them certainty at the end that they're ready to pass their exam. Now, our adaptive learning platform already leads the markets that we're in. For our flagship course, the FINRA SIE exam, we have a 98% first-time pass rate, with the national average being 72%. Personalized learning means that students complete our courses in about half the time that it takes to complete competitors' courses, and we have data across thousands of students to back that up. And a third of our learning is done on mobile devices. For a lot of industries, that's actually table stakes, but for the industry that we're in, that is pretty revolutionary. And our mobile users are our most engaged users, often checking in 8 to 10 times a day. In addition, the technology and user experience that we have built inside of our product empowers students. And I wanted to give you a few examples of how this can be a major competitive advantage. First is our infinite question generation engine. So as many questions as we can, essentially, but primarily quant questions for FINRA, for GRE, et cetera, we actually build them as templates, and then those templates can be reused many times. As you may know, if you see the same question again on a quiz, let's say you're studying and you want to redo it, it loses about half the effectiveness because you remember the shape of the answer. So this solves that problem and teaches the underlying concept. We have built a machine learning essay score that immediately grades students' writing with the same degree of accuracy as a human score, and provides actionable feedback on the different pieces of their essay that could be improved. And then for our upcoming TOEFL course, we built an AI conversation partner that you speak to it and it speaks back. And this gives the students the ability to practice their speaking skills without the need for a tutor, which is one of the major gaps in language learning education today. And so we feel like we've cracked the code on making learning enjoyable and engaging, even when the content is dull. The joke is Duolingo made language learning fun. We have made securities regulations fun. And so testament to that is our refund rate. We have a no questions asked refund policy and only a 2% refund rate. For our authors, we're able to get best-in-class authors who are at the top of their field because we provide a passive income stream for them, something they don't normally have access to. And all of our authors have outstanding credentials. And further testament to the user's interest and love of the product is our conversion metrics. We have a quarter of our website visitors are signing up for free accounts, 3/4 of them are purchasing. And this is 70% organic traffic and 30% affiliates, which are comparison review, exam review comparison websites and other tutors who like our product so much that they're willing to refer people to it. And so at our current 19% month-over-month growth rate, we're projected to hit 4.5 million in annual revenue run rate by the end of next year. But with capital, we believe we can accelerate that tremendously. And our long-term goal is to become the fastest growing edtech company of all time. Edtech isn't often seen, or hasn't been in the past anyway. I think that's changing now, but it hasn't necessarily been seen as an industry with a ton of change or fast change like this. And so we believe that COVID's created a one-time window for this change. And to give you a reference, Kaplan had 1.5 billion in revenue in 2018 before being taken private. But Kaplan is stuck in the past, and their learners demand engaging experiences today. We believe that we have an opportunity to capture this market before them. Are we at time, Alec? I see you.
Yeah, Tyler, thank you so much. I'm unfortunately going to have to run into Q&A because we've hit time, but great to learn about Achievable, and congrats on the traction and progress to date. I'd love to throw it to Tim for the first question.
Great.
Hey, Tyler, good to see you again. Thank you for the pitch. Real quickly, I think my question is just going back to the one slide that you had where you were listing out all of the differentiations.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought that strikes me is that you could probably build, a huge company off of each of those individually. Just being able to provide infinite questions, or just being able to provide a speech practice product or feature or whatever. Does it feel like to you that you're trying to do too much? Have you had any pushback on that, or any concerns around just trying to build so many different, significant pieces into a single product?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question. We have definitely gotten it before. Again, it all really aligns to our goal, which is to unlock opportunity for people. And so for us, for instance, like language learning, it might not necessarily seem like it's related to test prep right away, but when you align them under that goal, it makes sense in the umbrella. And for example, for that course, we will be launching it as a TOEFL test prep course and an IELTS test prep course after that as our wedge into that market to kind of like merge over kind of the two pieces. But I don't believe we're doing too much, because I think that our focus is still really deliberately on the one goal.
Okay.
Thank you. Maybe we'll throw it to Juan for a question.
Sure, Alec. Thanks, Tyler. Great pitch. I guess I'm curious about. I'd love to learn more about this this infinite question generation engine that the company has. I'd love to better understand the data set that's behind this engine and sort of the repository of study questions that you have at your disposal.
Yeah. So essentially, let's say you're preparing a math course, right? Or you're building the content for it. You want to teach multiplication, you would probably need to just do a bunch of variations of problems. So what we did is we obfuscated that by building a template. And so within the template, you would say essentially, this number can be between 1 and 5. This number can be between 2 and 8. And then the formula is set up in such a way that it'll all kind of pan out. And so the way that we built our system is that this formula then feeds into the question itself, the right answer, the wrong answers or distractors, and then also the explanation at the end. So when they go and they say, oh, I got this wrong, how did I get it wrong? We actually give them like full step-by-step instructions with the real numbers. Is that helpful? Did I answer your question fully?
It is. I guess I'm just curious as to when you guys initially started building, building this engine. What data set were you using to do so, and how have you validated, I guess, its accuracy and effectiveness?
Yeah. So I think that the right way to answer that is that we build templates that can then be spun out into multiple versions of the same problem. So the actual templating is not machine learning. It's more just like having a starting point and then having ranges that starting point can break off from. So a single template can lead to thousands of variations, of which a student will probably only see probably a dozen in their lifetime. So they'll all be random to the student.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler and Juan. Jeff, any questions from you?
Yeah, Tyler, I was interested looking at this, and I was just curious to know if the structure of your company is primarily around the so for lack of a better term, a template, as you were saying earlier. How similar are each one of these certifications? Are they sort of 50% your template, and then they have the content plugged in from your various authors, or is it each one is sort of built up from the foundation all on its own? And
No.
where does that fall in the middle?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that question. So our plan is to build everything as a platform, but we do build bespoke experiences on top of the platform when appropriate. So I would say it's probably 80 to 90% shared, like common product. And then there are little pieces like the essay grader that are only really relevant to the tests that have an essay. And so we like to think of ourselves not necessarily as an LMS, but almost like as an LMS agency or like a boutique, where we work with the author directly to build like a custom vertical for them, but it's starting from the same base.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Wonderful. Well, with that, Tyler, can't thank you enough for sharing a bit more about Achievable. And again, congratulations on the momentum and traction to date. And thank you to our judges for those thoughtful questions. With that, we're ready to move to our third presenting company. It's my pleasure to welcome Keith Wakeman from SuperBetter.
Hi, my name is Keith Wakeman, and I'm the CEO at SuperBetter. SuperBetter brings social and emotional learning to life for middle school and high school classrooms in a way that's practical and engaging. I co-founded SuperBetter together with Jane McGonigal, our Chief Science Officer. I'm an innovator and a brand builder. I've launched over $1 billion of new products. Jane is a researcher, a world-renowned game designer, and known as the global thought leader for using the science of games to improve real lives. Jane is also the inventor of SuperBetter, and she shared her story that led to SuperBetter in this popular TED Talk with over 8 million views. You see, Jane hit her head and got a concussion, and the concussion didn't heal properly. Over time, Jane experienced anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. Her damaged brain was saying, Jane, you have no reason to live. And she finally got to the point that she said, I'm going to either create a game to help myself heal, or I'm going to kill myself. Unfortunately for the world, she created a game that is now SuperBetter and has helped over 1 million people overcome obstacles in their own lives. The problem that we solve is youth mental health, which has been declining for a decade and has been made much worse in the last 18 months because of the pandemic. Middle school and high school teachers, they're on the front lines, and they see and they feel the impact on their students every day. And they want and they need practical and engaging tools to help. Tools like SuperBetter, a game-based learning platform that promotes social and emotional learning, resilience, mental health, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the heart of SuperBetter is a unique methodology that empowers students to bring the same mindset that they use when they play video games into the real world. How does it work in the classroom? Well, teachers host games and students play games. Teachers select from a game library, or they can create their own game using our methodology. They begin and end the game with a classroom discussion, and while students play during the week, they monitor the activities completed in their admin portal. Students play outside of class on their web or mobile device. They accept the challenge to play. And each day, they spend a few minutes completing their gameful activities. They activate power-ups, quick, simple activities that give them positive energy. They battle bad guys, which are obstacles that get in the way of their goal. And they complete quests, which are steps towards their epic win. As they play, students see their whole person resilience grow, and they earn badges to represent the new skills they're developing. SuperBetter gets great reviews on the App Store, 4.7 out of 5 stars. And not only do individuals love playing it, but teachers and therapists recommend it. Many schools are recommending SuperBetter, and teachers on their own have been creating SuperBetter classrooms to bring our gameful methodology to life. SuperBetter is backed by published, randomized, controlled, and clinical trials. This study at University of Pennsylvania shows that playing SuperBetter for 30 days significantly reduces depression, and anxiety. Our near-term total addressable market in the US is $2 billion. Our revenue model is a freemium subscription. Teachers subscribe to host games for their students, and school districts purchase annual site licenses. SuperBetter is highly differentiated. Compared to meditation apps, our gameful approach is more engaging for students. And compared to traditional SEL curriculums, SuperBetter excels at developing skills in the real world. We recently had an announcement of a collaboration with Parkland Hospital System to bring SuperBetter to at-risk teens in the Dallas community. This collaboration will generate revenue that will help fund our product investment to allow us to introduce the SuperBetter classroom product in the second quarter of next year. We have a bold mission to unlock the heroic potential of 50 million youth in the next 5 years. Will you join us?
Thank you, Keith. And really exciting to learn about SuperBetter and the impact you've been having on students and youth across the country and the globe. I'd love to turn it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Jeff, do you want to kick us off?
Hey, Keith, thanks so much for the presentation. I think this is my second or third time seeing you just in a fairly short period of time. So it's great to see, and I love the mission and what you're trying to achieve. What I'm curious about is actually if you have any direct correlation to, some of the sort of standard like grades and attendance and those type of things, and how you've seen those trends, how those trends have changed in schools that you've implemented SuperBetter.
Terrific. So just to kind of range that, we have a lot of teachers and classrooms are using SuperBetter. We're not monetizing with school districts yet, so we're pre that stage. But what we do, our core promise for SuperBetter is that we build resilience. The clinical and randomized control trials support that we build the 7 social, emotional, and mental metrics that are associated with higher resilience. And so our way of getting there, until we have actual student data that we're collecting, which we'll do soon, is to kind of make that connection of we build resilience. There's a whole body of literature that shows that students with higher resilience do better academically, they graduate at higher rates, and so on. So in the near term, that's our way of addressing that, especially with customer discussions. And again, the Parkland relationship will collect that kind of data, and we'll also, as we get into schools, that'll be one of our priorities, is to start to collect that data.
Cool, thank you, I appreciate that. And it's the thing that strikes me is that you need to be fairly evolved in the space to see those direct connections. So I'm interested to see how those things start to evolve over time.
Terrific, thanks.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Alec. Thank you so much for introducing the company and the app, Keith. This is so coincidental because I was literally listening to Jane's podcast interview with Shane on the Knowledge Project, literally like 2 or 3 days ago. So this is amazing. I guess my my simple question is just if you can give us a couple of examples of some of the games that the children are actually playing. Just my big concern with gaming apps has always been that there's a very fine line between gaming and the substantive aspect, and usually people fall over on one side or the other. So I'm just trying to understand how you're actually balancing yourself on that line.
Sure. Yeah, so SuperBetter is a game that's played in real life. So we're not a video game that's taking people away from the world or students away from the world. And so the game is always the same. You're going for your epic win. You're recruiting allies to support you. Each day, you're towards your epic win. You're activating these power-ups. You're battling a bad guy. You're completing a quest, and you're checking in with your allies. So the structure and the method, that's the methodology that's been validated in the studies, and that we know it works. So the games themselves are content or activities that go through that methodology. So there might be a 5-day game focused on building the SEL skill of empathy. And so the epic win of that game is to develop the skill of empathy. Each day there are quests that help to learn and practice empathy in the real world. There are bad guys that are battled, that are obstacles that get in the way of practicing empathy. You creating awareness of those bad guys is huge, and then trying different strategies and empowering students to battle the, is very empowering, and then they're activating power-ups as well. So that's how the games, kind of the games work. It's a very consistent methodology.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And any quick questions on your side, Juan?
Yeah, I just had a quick follow-up actually to add to with regards to the game library. I guess how many games are currently available to teachers and students, and how do you expect to, I guess, to continue to grow that library over time?
Yeah, the content piece is always one that we're thinks very strategically about. So we have roughly 25 games right now. If you downloaded the SuperBetter app off the App Store, they're called Power Packs, and so they're across a wide range of kind of well-being areas. As we move and launch the classroom product in the second quarter, we're going to expand the library and really focus around the CASEL standards of SEL, because we want to enter the market as a legitimate solution for social emotional learning, and CASEL has done that work, and they're the industry gold standard. So we will very strategically expand that library. We want to make it really easy for teachers to adapt. We also make it very easy. We're kind of, in some ways, our model is similar to Kahoot. So we're kind of like Kahoot for social emotional learning, but more of a flipped classroom model. And so teachers can also, with a very simple widget that will be part of their admin dashboard, will be able to create their own game. So if we don't have a game for a specific topic, they can set up the epic win, create a description, line up the quests, line up the bad guys, and in a very turnkey way, adapt SuperBetter for whatever classroom needs that they see.
Well, Keith, thank you so much for diving into this a little bit more, and can't wait to see what comes with the classroom version of SuperBetter. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And with that, we're ready to welcome our fourth presenting company to the stage. Ksenia Korobkova, product manager at Chef Koochooloo, will be joining us shortly.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to introduce you to Chef Koochooloo, which is a program, curriculum approach, and a suite of applications that helps kids cook to learn and learn how to cook. My name is Ksenia, and I'm the product manager at Chef Koochooloo. The major problem and opportunity we're addressing is that parents and teachers both know that childhood obesity links to poor grades and poor performance in schools. They also know that something as complex as teaching nutrition, teaching health, teaching wellness is super challenging. And we know that curricular time is almost all used up by teaching to standards rather than teaching life skills like nutritional awareness and cooking. And of course, Chef Koochooloo is the solution. So here is one of our little co-founders, Delray. And imagine if healthy eating habits were formed at an early age. Our major value proposition is to contribute to children's happiness, health, and education. And Chef Koochooloo is a program that teaches you how to cook delicious meals from across the world while also working on STEAM, standing for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, social studies skills, and also cultural awareness. So here's the underlying magic. We have built a K-5 gamified technology that's aligned with all of the 3 sets of national learning standards. And it teaches STEAM through healthy, culturally sensitive recipes. And almost all of the recipes are tested by children and are built to be kid-friendly and parent-approved. So here's our business model. We do have an in-person class, and we do offer software subscriptions that are sold to schools, to single teachers, to learning centers and after-school programs, to homeschooling parents, which has the number of whom has jumped up significantly since the pandemic, and also just parents seeking enrichment or something educational to do with their kids on the weekends. And their price per student for schools is approximately $7, and our price per student for home is approximately $10 for the subscription. Here's our team. So we're co-founded by a family of 3. So Layla Saborian, before working on tech giants, on the go-to-market plan for tech giants such as Yahoo, eBay, and SAP, she worked as an educational consultant. Antoine Tarwe, her husband, before starting multiple successful ed tech startups, was actually a math teacher. And Delaray is a professional child, so that works out. And the family-based nature of our startup really keeps us grounded and helps us stay kid-friendly and parent-approved. With this kind of team and with advisors from various universities, from Mattel, from Leapfrog, we have the passion and the experience to take the startup to the next level. Here's kind of what the game looks like. So what does it mean to teach math and science? Well, cooking is applied math and science. You always have to change quantities, figure things out, change the recipes, and so on. So we really tap into that. There's a story that goes along with each recipe. So that's how we teach language arts and social studies. And then there's a cultural awareness piece where after every lesson, you learn about an issue that's important to kids of your age in that country. And you're asked an open-ended question to build that critical awareness and critical thinking skill. So here's a quick summary of the educational value of Chef Koochooloo. We have built over 600 bilingual Spanish and English cook-to-learn lessons that are aligned with all of the major grade level standards. There's a walkthrough on an international recipe in each lesson. The lessons are gamified, there's questions, there's activities, and there's robust reporting features for parents, teachers, and administrators. And we have proven the educational impact through an independent study with significant results in science and math and in ELA, ELT. Here's kind of the matrix for the competitive analysis. We focus on high STEAM content incorporation and high hands-on activity focus. Here's a little bit about the expected revenue that we're bringing. We're hoping to bounce back from the pandemic and make a lot more money and bring Chef Koochooloo to kids worldwide. And we've been graciously supported by the National Science Foundation on our path to do so. Thank you so much. And will you join us on this delicious learning journey?
Thank you, Ksenia. It's exciting to see all the progress from Chef Koochooloo and all the schools that you're working with and delivering this really interesting and new experience to. Would love to throw it over to our judges for questions. Maybe Juan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Ksenia. Really interesting company. It's sort of near and dear to my heart. Love to cook and love to cook with my son as well. And we actually use a lot of sort of science and math techniques when we're doing so. Or at least I try to use some when we're doing so. I guess I'm curious. You know, I certainly can see how this can be very useful as an aid to students learning outside of school, and certainly even as an aid to schools as well. I guess I'm curious as to which one of those pathways, which one of those channels are you seeing more adoption from currently, and how are you actually finding customers in those channels as well? Because they're both sort of difficult to find, both schools and individual learners as well.
Yeah, so this program actually started as an after-school activity at a school in Mountain View, California, and Layla, the founder, has gotten so many requests for lunchtime activities, for after-school activities, for in-person learning activities for the students, that in order to scale, we decided to build the app. And the app got so much traction that parents were giving us grassroots efforts to create recipes from their home countries, lessons that they also practice at home. And so I would say it's definitely both teachers and parents that are getting really excited about the concept. I would say that right now, majority of the enthusiasm comes from homeschooling parents and parents that want the kitchen experience to be more educational and academic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Maybe Aten, do you want to take us to?
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Ksenia. I appreciate you pitching and presenting the company. Real quick question. I mean, it seems like a lot of the value that we're building into the product actually depends on the content we create. And as we all know, media production is not easy. You know, it's time consuming, it's capital intensive. Are there any pieces that you've built, whether using technology or just scalable resources that you've built that help you actually produce this content in a faster, easier manner?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, so we always have to balance quality with efficiency. So the way that we do that is we've created powerful templates for each grade level. Mm-hmm. And we've built a powerful content management system that's already bilingual and accepts media. So when you say, here's a banana on the screen, a screenshot of a banana shows up. And we have a cadre of about 200 volunteers that work on producing different graphics for us in order to scale up the application to be able to show any ingredient, any question, any equation.
Okay, where are you getting these volunteers from?
Colleges, high schools.
Okay.
We've partnered with various educational institutions across the United States.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aten. Any questions from you, Jeff?
Yeah, Ksenia, thanks so much. And I was really struck by how interesting and engaging the solution, feels like from the learner perspective. And I think that's a great theme there. What I'm actually curious about is in terms of most of the growth and development of the company seems to be through sort of organic referrals and, this person, saying, oh, this is a great experience. Can you talk a little bit more about your growth and expansion strategy? Is it a school-to-school strategy? Is it a broader social media type of strategy? What type of things is the company talking about in terms of getting the story out there about this product, out into the world?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Social media is a huge factor and has been a huge driver for the connections we've made with parents and with homeschoolers and with sort of learning pods that have been built up across the country due to the pandemic. So social media is a huge factor. We have ongoing relationships with major thought leaders and educational institutions such as Johns Hopkins University, and they are ready to kind of recommend us to all of the schools that they work with, which ultimately ends up being around 250,000 students. And finally, we're working on publishing a cookbook that will also dovetail into the application and will serve to some organic marketing that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ksenia, for sharing the Chef Koochooloo story and for diving deeper into this with us. Really exciting to learn about it. And, as Juan said, close to the heart of so many people that it's such an exciting and interesting take on STEAM learning. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And we're ready to go into our fifth presenting company. It's my pleasure to welcome Ghazal Qureshi, CEO and founder at UpBrainery, to the virtual stage.
Hi, thank you everyone for joining me to hear about UpBrainery. My name is Ghazal Qureshi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of UpBrainery. My previous company was an education company. It was a franchise company, which I grew from one location to 107 across 5 countries, finally exiting in 2019 to form UpBrainery. I formed UpBrainery really to level the the playing field and to provide educational equity through low-cost adaptive education. UpBrainery is an online educational platform which allows students to see alternative paths beyond high school for better capitalization, whether it's to a 4-year, 2-year, or vocational. And we do that through individualized skills development, knowledge courses, and micro-credentials. During COVID, UpBrainery piloted our app with parents as well as community partners that were looking to offer outreach services in their communities, and it allowed us to really reach more students faster. We also launched an exclusive partnership with the US Congress in fall of 2021 and plan to onboard 25,000 students by the end of 22 for that program alone. We've also worked with Whataburger, Girl Scouts, Girls Inc., Ericsson, NASDAQ, and others, and plan to reach 100,000 monthly users by the end of 2022. So the problem that we're trying to solve, even before COVID, 65% of students that entered college, they had no clear idea what they were going to study. And as a result, college debt is all-time high, with 70% of graduates actually wishing that they had pursued a completely different degree. That is exasperated because in high schools, there's only one college counselor on average for 500 students. So enter UpBrainery. UpBrainery uses AI to really understand the interests and aptitudes as well as the learning styles of these students. It shortens the time frame required between school and job by helping students see a clearer path to whether a 4-year, 2-year vocational or straight to workforce makes better sense for them. BrainLab is our platform, and we use AI in BrainLab to help build these dynamic learning experiences that are individualized and adapted to each student. BrainLab identifies the knowledge gaps as well as the interests of the students and shows students how to complete certain pathways, earn micro-credentials, and be on their path. We are teaching the TikTok generation. And for that reason, BrainLab provides immersive teaching opportunities through 3D models, videos, engaging activities, and gamification in short knowledge bursts. This is an example of how we work with our partner organizations. Not only do they purchase seat licenses for kids in their communities, but they also help us develop branded, custom digital courses and academies for K-12 students. We make money by charging organizations a fee for building custom journeys as well as seat licenses, and then we charge parents for the use of our premium services. This is our amazing team. My co-founder is an experienced instructional designer. We also have Dr. Noreen Mayberry, who is the first female toxicologist at NASA as our chief scientist. We have the past CIO of Naranja as our CTO, and Dr. Carol Hart, who is an ex-superintendent as our educational advisor. We have gained a lot of publicity in the little over a year that we have been around. We are a Google for Startups company, a generator portfolio company, as well as featured in the Forbes Next 1000. We are very excited to share with you what the UpBrainery mission is, and we're hoping to actually that you will join us on this journey as we change the shape of education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ghazal. Really exciting to learn about UpBrainery. I'd like to turn it over to our judges for any questions. Atin, do you want to kick us off?
No, thanks. Thanks, Ghazal. Thank you for sharing the vision. I guess my question is, when you talk about using artificial intelligence to understand what students are looking for, what they're best suited for, what kind of data sets are you using to come up with those suggestions?
So that's a really good question, and that's the one that I knew that would be coming up, right? So we are actually working with a team of neuropsychologists, educators, as well as several universities that are working on with our data scientists to be able to pinpoint those actual data points. It goes anywhere from what they like to eat, what students like to do, what their schedule looks like. So anything from those soft points to actually also understanding through assessments and quizzes and gamification as to how a student really works better with how the information is presented to them. So for example, one student might do better if they played a video and were able to watch that video versus somebody else that may have some hands-on interactive activities.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up. Where are you gathering this data from? I understand what kind of data you're using, but all of this is not easy to gather, right?
Yes, we're working with several schools and organizations, as well as private organizations where we have been able to get parental approval to be able to gather some of that data. We're continuing to build that data also on our platform, as well as using some outside sources through our partnerships with universities.
Okay, thanks, Ghazal.
Thank you, Atin. Any questions from you, Juan?
Sure. Thank you, Ghazal. I'm curious. The user here, the ultimate user here, is obviously the beneficiary is generally the student. But I'm curious as to if this is being used at their schools by a guidance counselor as an additional tool to help the counselor actually better provide services to the students. Is that something you're seeing right now, or is the idea that this goes directly to the students as they're sort of matriculating from high school to colleges?
Well, we have actually really hoped that this would be, we launched right prior to COVID. So we started building our product while COVID, the schools were all shut down. So we did not go after the schools right away as we had hoped to. Now is the time that we're actually starting the conversations with the schools and guidance counselors and the administrators and trying to get that into the hands of the students at the schools themselves. Currently, we've just been working with the organizations and parents directly in order to get that product in the hands of the students.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Juan. And any final questions from you, Jeff?
Yes, this product really strikes home close to home for me. I spent 4 years learning to be a nuclear pharmacist, obviously I'm not a nuclear pharmacist. So my question is actually about timing. I was curious if you had, clearly you're in this sort of K-12 guidance counselor, or pick your career when you're 16 or 17, thought process. And I was curious if there was any conversation internally about expanding this a little bit beyond that particular engagement to when the learners are more mature and have a little bit of more knowledge of what the careers really can be and how that might restructure what it is they're trying to pursue.
Absolutely. So the way that we've built the platform is built very agnostically to the type of content, the type of careers, anything that we want to actually build onto that. So that engine has already been built, and our secondary market that we plan to actually go after is the upskilling and the adult learner market. So the platform's ready. It's just that we need to be able to focus on one market at a time. So we are focusing on the K-12 market.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you again, Ghazal. It's really exciting to learn about UpBrainery and really appreciate you spending some time today with us sharing the story.
Thank you.
And with that, last but not least, it's my pleasure to welcome our final presenting company to the virtual stage, Dr. S. Sudhakar, founder and president of SchoolCues.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. S, and I'm the president and founder of SchoolCues. We are an all-in-one school management solution for small schools. Our mission is to simplify school management and administration in small schools, and the way we define small schools is those private schools with less than 500 students. This market is on a tear in the US and worldwide, especially after the pandemic. And here's the landscape that I want to talk to you about. So there are approximately 150,000 schools in the US. And what we are targeting is the private schools, the charter schools, and the micro schools and the trade schools, which are the fastest growing markets. The public school market is relatively flat, but the private school and the charter school markets are growing, and the micro schools and the small, ultra small schools are growing really fast. And this is our target market. So here's the total opportunity we are addressing. So if you look at all the total number of schools, the 140,000 schools in the US, the addressable market spend for the digital products is approximately $200 to $250 per student. And that is, so your total TAM is 15 billion. The market we are addressing is the ultra small schools with less than 500 students. And our market opportunity is approximately $1.5 billion. And the spend we are addressing is the average digital product spend. And the worldwide market size is approximately 10x this size. So here's the problem. The small school market is on a tear, and managing a school and just administration of it is difficult and expensive, especially when you have limited resources and budgets. They use so many disparate systems. It's extremely paper intensive, it's expensive, and they're resource strapped, time consuming, and not fully integrated. And I've broken it down. There are multiple core functions. I just broken it down to 4 pillars: the admissions piece, the payments piece, the communications piece, and the data management. And a typical school spends about $75 per student in managing and administering a school. This comes from the digital spend piece. So what we have built is the next generation all-in-one school management platform for small schools, where ours is an integrated SaaS-based enterprise platform. All transactions can be completed in less than 3 minutes using the web, email, SMS, push, and mobile. And the way we have built up technology stack, it can handle over 3 million concurrent users based on the current load. We have several competitive differentiators. We are the first to market with this kind of a platform. Our cost is about 40 to 60% less than the competitors. We have great customer support. We can be set up in a few hours as opposed to weeks and months for our competitors. We have multiple upsell channels, and we do rank #1 in SEO for the small schools tag word for any solution for small schools. And we have several different revenue channels we are targeting. We have multiple revenue streams. There's the platform revenue stream. It's $125 to $500 per school per month. Then there's a mobile revenue stream, and also a per transaction revenue stream. We have found that our average customer lifetime value is about $2,500 per year, and it's about 5 years. And we already processed over 16 million in transactions through our system over the last 18 months. Our phase 1 is US and Canada, and phase 2 is worldwide. This is our team. My partner CTO Ram, who's built several enterprise products, and Zara handles marketing, and we have a very strong backend engineering team with 20 years of enterprise software experience. Here's our investment ask for $150K. That's our seed we are asking for, and we are primarily looking to do product development, customer support as the number of customers ramp up, and in sales. We have over 170 schools across US and Canada using our product. We are forecasting about 365, and we believe we'll exceed the revenues for 2021. And we believe with this funding, we will be cash flow positive in 2023. Why us? It's a market with high barriers to entry for a product like ours. We are an all-in-one enterprise mobile SaaS, and there is a significant need for schools for integrated payments. Any school that you start today, the first thing they look for is admissions and payments. And this market is growing, and it's a very niche market. There's a huge growth in micro schools and pods across the US and in vocational schools, and there's significant consolidation of smaller players in this in the edtech space. So that's SchoolCues for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. S. Great to learn about SchoolCues, and imagine the past 18 months have been a very tumultuous period as kind of the learning environment has changed so much. But would love to turn it over to our judges for any questions. Jeff, do you want to kick us off on this?
Yeah, I think one of the things when I look at a system like that with lots of different functions, and you mentioned the payment function at the back end of that presentation. I was curious to know where the sort of key features for small schools sort of stand out. For me, if I only know what a higher education LMS, why do I need a small school LMS or sort of management system?
So we are not an LMS. We are an administration system.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I apologize for that. Yeah. So where do you stand out in terms of that small school feature?
So all small schools, the #1 they want is an easy way to increase their admissions and enrollment, manage their communications, and manage payments. And all three are disparate functions. And you won't believe it. Constant Contact and MailChimp are our competitors. That's what schools use before they come to our platform. So there's your answer.
That helps a lot. Okay, excellent.
Because school payment management is complex. They have so many different ways to manage payment. Everything is manual, and they use Square, they use PayPal. they have so much complex tuition structures, right? So we have just simplified it for them.
I understand. I get it.
Thank you, Jeff. Juan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. S. I'm curious, how's your traction been thus far? So you mentioned sort of the COVID pandemic and how schools work. Certainly, this group of schools growing quickly. What's your traction been like thus far?
So, Juan, here's the thing. We have been building this platform for quite some time, but I have never seen this kind of activity in the small schools market since the pandemic. So since the pandemic broke out, we have increased our revenues 50% year over year. The acceleration in the micro schools all over this place, schools of 15 students, 25 students, and we're getting inquiries. I mean, we're not able to fulfill the demand we're getting from international audience because our platform is not there yet. So we are just focused primarily on the US markets and the Canadian markets. In fact, we were nominated as a preferred partner for Stripe for the beta trials in Canada because Stripe does not have EFT in Canada. So we got selected by them in the education space in the Canadian markets. So the growth is huge. And so last 1 year, we were the first company to introduce COVID screening app for small schools. So we are excited with the trajectory we're going. And as I said, I haven't seen this in the last few years. And this is the first time I've seen this kind of a growth in this market because it's a pretty tough space. But there is a pent-up demand for schools to get smaller and parents to pull their kids out of public schools and put them into smaller environments.
And specifically, Dr. S, how many different schools or educational settings are working with SchoolCues right now?
So in the private schools, we have the Catholic schools, the Montessori schools, the Lutheran schools, Christian schools, parochial schools, religious schools, and the charter schools. They're growing at about 7.5%. So that's a big growth market. But the biggest market are the micro schools and the vocational schools. As Alex said in the beginning, that the number of men in colleges are coming down. They're going into vocational schools, right? So the vocational schools and the adult education schools are growing. So that's a growth market too. So many new markets are happening in this space that we have not seen before. So it's an exciting time to be in this market.
No, thank you.
Sure.
Atin, our final question to you.
Actually, I'm good, Alec. Thank you. I think Dr. S has answered all of the questions that I would have had in any case, so we're good. Thanks.
Well, perfect. Dr. S, thank you so much for spending the time with us, sharing a little bit more background on SchoolCues and helping so many different organizations and institutions transition during what is an unprecedented time in our history. So it's great learning about it, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
And with that, 6 exceptional early stage startup pitches. We're now going to take a couple moments for our judges to get their scores in, deliberate, make final decisions, and we will be back in about 2 to 3 minutes to let you know who our winning company is. But in the interim, share a little bit more about our great partners at AWS. See you soon.
The rapid pace of technology innovation is changing the education industry. Entrepreneurs are pushing the boundaries and creating innovative solutions for students, teachers, and educational establishments. AWS EdStart, Amazon Web Services Education Technology Accelerator, is designed to help you build in a secure, scalable, and cost-effective way, allowing you to focus on creating the next generation of online learning, analytics, and campus management solutions. From design to global scale, AWS EdStart offers resources to quickly develop your applications on the AWS cloud. AWS EdStart offers 2 program levels. First, the AWS EdStart Innovators tier, which is designed to support the earliest stage edtech startups with entry-level support and access to virtual and live events. Innovators are granted AWS promotional credits that allow them to explore AWS technology and build a foundation for their solution. Second, the AWS EdStart Members tier is designed to help edtech entrepreneurs build and scale solutions on the AWS cloud. Members of AWS EdStart are provided with resources such as select marketing opportunities, technical training, and mentorship, along with exposure to a global community of edtech builders, leaders, and fellow entrepreneurs. To get started with AWS EdStart, visit aws.amazon.com/AWS EdStart to learn more and submit your application.
Welcome back, everybody. We're ready to announce our winning companies from tonight's event. Again, thank you so much for sticking with us throughout these incredible pitches. We started with a great fireside chat, heard from 6 incredible early stage founders, and now we are ready to share our winners of tonight's EdTech Pitch Night, our Pitch Night spotlight on EdTech with a real focus on exceptional early stage founders in this space. So before we announce our winner, I'd like to share at first our audience prize winner. Now, this is people who voted, people who participated. One lucky person gets a free annual membership to Passport. And the winner of our audience prize is Job Oyabisi, the co-founder and CEO of Stan Lab. So our team will be reaching out to make sure you have access to that free Passport membership. And thank you for participating. Now, without further ado, it's my privilege to announce, and here's what they get access to, all of the great resources on Passport. But it's my privilege to announce the People's Choice Award winner, which is a $500 prize, the most popular company from tonight in the audience.